Hi, everybody. This is Alan Fine, and I'm here with Dr. Susanna Eddy, Intrepid Travel's environmental impact specialist. She's authored the 10 Steps to Decarbonizing Your Business, and she's responsible for Intrepid's climate actions, its work to hit science-based targets, and its goals to become climate positive. We are going to talk about Intrepid Travel on a very globally conscious Insider Travel Report. So my first question is, how are you? And tell us where you are.
Good. Thank you. So I join you virtually from Melbourne, Australia. So that's where I'm based. And that's where also our headquarters is for Intrepid Travel. And as you mentioned in the intro, I'm their environmental impact specialist based here.
Now, my understanding of a B Corp and Intrepid Travel specifically are that they're companies that use business as a force for good. Would you say that is pretty accurate?
Yep, that's very accurate. And it's also about what the terms we are using is also we are balancing profit and purpose. And we became a certified B Corp actually back in 2018. And other B Corps that you might know are actually including like adventure brands like Patagonia, Kathmandu, or Ben & Jerry ice cream. And really being a B Corp, that means that we meet the highest standards of verified social, environmental performance, but also public transparency and legal accountability to balance the profit and the purpose.
That's great. That's great. It's admirable. And I'm glad we're talking to you. So now let me ask you, what does it mean to the travel industry for President Joseph Biden to have the U.S. rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement?
It's massive, I think, just globally, but then also specifically to the to the travel industry, I will speak. So I think if we go back, so Paris Agreement is now 5 years old, or the anniversary was in December. And what is really important is that since then, in these 5 years, we have really seen global warming accelerating. So the World Meteorology Organization actually has said that 2020 was yet another extraordinary year when you think about our climate, so extreme temperatures. We saw these fires here a year ago in Australia, but then also the year finished off with these wildfires in California and massive flooding. So, and COVID really feels like that sort of global disaster again, but it is really around that catalyst to use that moment to really kind of take more ambitious steps on climate. And that's really where I think it's really amazing to see with the Biden administration is that they have rejoined the Paris Agreement. And that really kind of sends that bright light and hope that we're all moving in the right direction. And it's really around what the position that governments are taking, but maybe in the context of travel, it's not just about what countries do, but we all need to take a lead. And that's with all, I mean, if we take the business context, it's around what is business taking and what are we doing? Because we're certainly all in 2020 in the tourism industry have battled the challenges of COVID. But we also have to recognize if we don't move on climate, it will actually be too late. So, and that really means that we also have to take our place and really decarbonize the sector and setting emission targets that align with the global goal of 1.5, which is the centerpiece of the Paris Agreement.
We got to really hope that they talk about the tipping point. We got to really hope we're nowhere near it. Because if we passed it, it's all futile. And I really hope that we're, because I know the fact that the United States just re-signed, I mean, we've lost some time.
Exactly. Yeah. But then again, it is really like now focus forward, seeing the climate plan. There's just so much, I think, hope again and meaningful steps forward. And especially it also kind of, I think, has really created a momentum around the world, seeing other countries now kind of reconsidering their targets.
You're saying to be optimistic and move forward. It's like no point crying over spilled emissions.
No, we need to act as soon as possible. I think that's the other thing. It's kind of the window is narrowing and we really have to act now, and it's every day that we're sitting still and considering it is another day lost, if that makes sense.
And then how does the U.S. joining the Accord help individual like tour companies like Intrepid? Is there an on-the-ground benefit, or how does it change?
I think it's more around that there is now that global framework. So governments are pushing forward it, but we know governments alone can't achieve. We need citizens, but we need also the corporate sector. And having now that government support and kind of everyone working towards the same goal, it kind of brings everyone along.
So I hope that we will get to dispel the concept that working toward these goals hurts the bottom line. Doesn't it usually help businesses?
Yeah. So from a point of the science-based targets, it actually really brings operational efficiency and also cost savings. And I think there's also a big part around branding and being a leader and not being a lagger. And to give you just examples, so by setting actually emission reduction targets and starting the journey of decarbonization, you are actually at the moment ahead of the curve. You are a leader. We want to bring obviously others along, and that's especially in light of the approved targets, science-based targets that Intrepid have. We are the first, but we don't want to be the only one, because we need to see the whole tourism sector kind of starting to measure and to reduce, and that's in line with a 1.5 degree future.
Now, the complete pause in travel had its good side, because we saw fish starting to re-enter Venice and international cities. The smog went down, but it wasn't enough. It's just a blip. Can we talk about, but what did we learn from that pause?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And it was definitely amazing seeing sort of the benefits, how nature regained. What we learned is definitely that COVID has shown us that drastically reducing air travel is not the silver bullet, or the silver bullet answer to neutralizing the climate threat. It certainly, we saw drop in emission, air quality improved, especially when you think about in India, parts seeing for the first time the Himalaya in 30 years, because otherwise the air has such bad air quality. But we also know that government's policy, business operation, but also consumer choices all have to really focus on decarbonization. So certainly there is the aviation part in there, the flying, and I come to that kind of the fly go or no go, but it's also around how do we actually really move to 100% renewable energy? How do we move to more sustainable development, building practices, circular economy? It's looking also at reductions in waste. So it's quite a multifaceted picture what decarbonization means. And that's definitely what we have seen, that just stopping air travel is not the solution, but it's part of the solution. And that really leads into that flying or no flying, is that definitely this coming decade is interesting, because there is kind of prediction that maybe people will fly less, but actually stay longer and spend more time exploring also their own country. And that's certainly what we are seeing this year, as, for example, in Australia, international flight is definitely off. So how do you explore your own back garden? But it's also around kind of making flights count. So fly less, but when we must fly, and that's definitely around business, but also pleasure. Can we really stay longer, make it work, make it really last, and where we can, and that's definitely looking at anyone calling it from Europe, is traveling from Europe, is there's of course many more high-speed trains available. But certainly COVID for us, if I give an example from Intrepid, is that for getting to a starting point of any of our overseas trip, there's no perfect answer to this. Most travelers will have to book a flight to get to the start of these trips. But through COVID, we actually have really looked at local travel and have really started to develop retreats. Last year, we launched retreats in the UK and Europe, and seeing that also there's a new trend of more slow travel and human-powered, meaning more cycling and walking trips.
I want to get to, I want to talk about your 10-step guide to decarbonize.
Yeah, sure.
it's there to help travel businesses to reduce the carbon emissions. Can you give us a taste? What do they need to know?
So we developed that guide last year, in that year that was so challenging for our sector. And that was really to bring value to the tourism industry, not about bringing value to us. And it was really about kind of sharing our story. So what has been our climate journey, and what are the steps that we have taken to where we are now, which means we've been carbon neutral since 2010. So that means we are measuring our emissions from offices and trips. We are reducing our emissions as much as possible, and I can talk a bit more to that point. But then the unavoidable emission, any business will have unavoidable emission that you can't avoid at the moment, will be offset by investing into offset projects. And so with this guide, we have basically demystified our climate journey, and we explained the 10-step from you actually have to understand what is at stake, like how is climate change actually impacting your business, the impact on your business.
That you may not even be aware of.
Exactly. So where are you seeing already maybe tours being cancelled, delayed? Maybe you have operated in Europe during the big heat waves in 18 and 19, and your tours couldn't go at lunchtime. They had to start already at 7 a.m. because it was just not feasible for the risk of heat strokes to have a tour running at noon in Rome in the middle of August. Maybe at an operational level, you have seen that your electricity bills went very high because more aircon had to run because staff just couldn't work in the community because it was that hot, just to give two examples. But then it's basically moving through the guide. It's really about looking at then really around how do you measure, and we basically provide always the overview and then the Intrepid examples. You will understand how we are measuring, what are we considering for reducing, how are we looking at offsets, and then of course we're speaking to the emission reduction targets by the Science-Based Target Initiative.
What I love is that these aren't trade secrets. You're willing to share with everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That guide is available on Intrepid's website, and it's freely you can download it for free, but also it's always around there. Do also reach out for conversations because it is a journey. It's also recognizing the role we have and the emergency that is really at stake, and whether you can actually declare a climate emergency.
Does one of your 10 steps say, if you book an Intrepid trip, you're actually helping the environment?
It doesn't say that one.
The marketing is step 11.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah.
You haven't done that? About that? That's not in there?
No, because it is really about the consumer, is to say, if you travel with the company that has that at the core, and you will benefit the planet, the people and the communities you're traveling to.
In fact, travel agencies, the ones that we are going out to, they can start by trying to focus on making sure their clients go to companies like that.
Yeah.
Well, shouldn't businesses do more than just carbon offsetting? What else can they do? I mean, I feel like the carbon offset is, you're still polluting. It's nice that you're offsetting, but I think you need to you got to do both, because this is like that spigot, that spigot analogy where you have the hot and the cold water. Both spigots are on. You turn off the hot water, there's still water running.
Exactly. No, and it's a really good point. And I think, put it that way, offsets are part of the solution, but they're not the path to address the climate emergency. So as a business, you really need, first of all, to understand your impact, and that comes back to measuring your emissions. And that's for as a tour operator, and of course it's different for accommodation or destination, but speaking as a tour operator, it's about your operations, your physical offices, and then your trip emissions, where we are measuring transport, accommodation, and waste. A big part, as you said, correct, Alan, is about reducing. We continuously need to reduce our emission. But at the moment, in the current time, there is unavoidable emission. For example, for flights, whether they're part of your itinerary, there's maybe a certain amount of business travel, airplanes are still emitting CO2. So we will have a certain amount of unavoidable emissions, but in many aspects of life. So, and that's really where the offsets are coming in. So balance those unavoidable emissions so that you become carbon neutral, but continue to reduce the amount. And the important part with the offsets is also invest in high quality carbon offsets. So in our case, we're using, for example, the Gold Standard project, which means they also have core benefits. So they are cultural, social, or environmental economic benefits that come with these projects.
We go out to over 75,000 travel advisors, and what can they do? They're going to download the 10 steps. They're going to get involved. What can they do right away?
Yeah, no, I think definitely download the guide and make yourself familiar. Understand actually where are you in your journey, because maybe you already have engagement in your business. Fantastic, but maybe that's what you still need to create. And maybe it's really, as the steps say, so the first, understand the impact, kind of understand the science, understand how it's impacting your business. Something that I would definitely encourage is really looking at declaring a climate emergency. The travel sector, our business, each of us have the front seat. The people and communities are impacted by climate change, and we're seeing the devastation just now with the pandemic, but there's much more to come. And so we really need to start to act and also reach out.
So in a practical sense, a travel agency or a travel advisor can turn off lights. We know that.
Yeah.
But what else can they do? And the travel advisor who's at home, an agent at home, is not necessarily ready to do carbon offsets. I mean, what is it that they should be doing?
Good. I think, first of all, educate yourself to really understand what is at stake. Other thing is around, if it's kind of the home environment, it's a really good one. It's around, can you actually purchase renewable energy? Can you, like, if you control where you get your energy from, do actually switch to renewable energy? Also vote with your purse. So that might be different contexts for the countries people base this around your superannuation, to think about ethical investment, but the same is with banking. It's kind of really thinking like, where do you put your money? But also when you purchase, can you support organizations that are really supporting and are working towards a safe climate? So look at B Corps, for example, as just to give one example, it's like that have this at its core.
But it's so difficult. I mean, every purchase you make has a carbon footprint somewhere. And so, I mean, and you can't know, I mean, here, okay, I like ice cream. I will now only buy Ben & Jerry's is one thing you can do. But it would be good to become familiar with the companies that are practicing this. So as you get familiar, I would think that's a goal, and then start
definitely,
shopping.
and that's kind of
voting with your purse.
Yeah, and also kind of understanding, questioning a bit behind the product that you're buying, and at the end also, like I said earlier, around flying, make it count. If you purchase something new, make it count. Like really thinking about, do I need it? If you say yes, there's a case for it, then it's about the kind of investing to get something that is of value, and also really kind of look into it, the company that you're buying from.
What's next for you? What are you doing at Intrepid? What are they having you do?
That's a good one. So last year was definitely our highlight with the science-based target, and that's a 15 years target. So we can't sit just still now and do nothing. We have to work towards it. And that's really where the focus is now around the implementation. So as part of our commitment of our climate emergency, where the science-based target sits within, is also to moving all our offices to renewable energy by 2025. So, and that one you have to start. It's not happening overnight just to switch all the retailer, and so that's a big part. But also it's driving performance and reporting. So I'm currently doing our annual carbon reporting for 2020, which is around the measuring, so that we actually know how many offsets we need depending on our carbon footprint. It's around driving performance. So how can we, again, push the bar, reduce our emissions across the business? But it's also around engagement, whether it's around our staff engaging across the different functions, because everyone is part of this climate journey in Intrepid. It doesn't sit just with the C-suite. It's part of every team. Everyone is involved and wants to be involved. But then it's also, of course, engaging our customers. And then a big part that I do, and which is kind of where we are today here, it's kind of the B2B, the advocacy work. Because as I said earlier, we were the first to get a science-based target approved as a tour operator, but we do not want to be the only one. It's very lonely up there. I want more to follow us and more to say we are measuring. Let's discuss the challenges that you have and really kind of transform the sector.
More heads, 2 heads are better than 1, 3 heads. I mean, the more people that communicate and work on it, one company finds a solution, shares it with the other, it's a win.
Exactly, absolutely. And I think that's really crucial this year, is around building those plans, especially when you think there's COP26, the big climate change conference coming up in Glasgow in November. Like, we all have to come with a plan. We need to use this year to really take big strides, and that's in Intrepid, but also how can we inspire others to join and really make that difference.
Dr. Eddy, what are the big sales right now? What countries are hot? What country, which is not your department? And I just thought it would be so funny to ask you that. Obviously,
No,
I'm
I'm
a salesperson, not you. But
I would think it's all around the domestic products.
This is all science-based.
I'm always saying I'm not the one for selling trips. I kind of know I'm learning.
But which trips are the most carbon neutral that you're most proud of?
This will be the cycling, walking. So anything that is human powered. I think since COVID-19 hit us all and put the sector on a hold, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of developed those new products, which is retreats that we launched last year around June, July, if I'm not wrong. But it's really around staying in one location, really exploring that place. It's not rushing from one place to the other. It's about many more cycling trips, which are really exciting because I love the kind of push bike. So seeing more of these cycling trips coming, because again, when you cycle on your hike, you experience the world differently. And that's really where we have put a lot of focus in, and also around the domestic market. So because we can't fly, so how can you explore your own back garden, which is really beautiful?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Eddy, I commend you for your work. I wish you a lot of luck. I wish the company a lot of luck. We will continue to follow your exploits because they help us all.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
so much, Alan. Thank you so much, Alan.
And this is Alan Fine for Insider Travel Report.